Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker.
Hey everyone, welcome to episode 55 of Formidable Opponents, a show that picks three people who have known each other virtually their entire lives in a series of conversations as we argue what is best in a variety of fun, engaging, and critical pop culture topics we all debate about. I'm Randall, and with me as always, Bob and Joseph, and today's topic is Best 80s Movie Cop. The 1980s were arguably the best decade for movie cops and, of course, gritty saxophone players who got hired to lay music over the crimes that were occurring. 80s cops had a blend of grit, charm, appeal, charisma, and they administered violence in a way that was both exciting and would perhaps have them kicked off the force. The 80s didn't give a damn. Powered by writers who were most likely on cocaine, directors powered by ego, and the action stars, many of whom were powered by cocaine, ego, and perhaps alcohol and steroids in some cases. And in the 80s, the obscene and the hyperbole of cop movies were the norm. If you're watching these movies with today's lens, yes, they may seem insouciant, poorly aged, and ultra-violent under the auspices of our hero saving the day, but as kids growing up in the 80s, we can attest that there was nothing more inspiring than the bad guy getting what he deserved, our hero getting the ending he earned, and perhaps that steamy, unemotional, poorly acted love scene with a hero's love interest. You know the one we're talking about. The love interest who thinks our hero is too much of a loose cannon to date, so she's with an accountant for the first act of the film, and after she gets saved by our hero cop, she walks out only wearing a towel, and that gritty sax music transforms into a soft piano, and gratuitous nudity and dim lighting encounters us before the obligatory final bloodshed. Yes, the 80s. Take it from three guys who have seen Mel Gibson's bare ass way too many times than we cared for. We couldn't wait to talk about this episode.
Or not enough times.
This week, Formidable Opponents, who are getting way too old for this shit, debate Best 80s Movie Cop. Taggart and Rosewood, how are you guys doing?
Come on the pause. We'll get together. Have a few laughs. Yeah. That's what everybody says about a podcast.
Yeah. What's going on, everybody? How's everybody doing?
Excited about this one. 80s movies cops. I keep on saying 80s movies cops. 80s movie cops.
80s movies cops. You don't say Pixar with 3 X's.
Too many S's on those. So how have you guys been?
Chicken.
Everybody's good.
We're good, man. We're good. It's been a good. It's summertime, baby.
I'm happy. A lot of shows. I just got started going. At least the summer shows. Just saw the first 3 episodes of The Boys.
The Boys. Awesome. Stranger Things.
Yes.
Murder She Wrote. I mean, there's so many great shows going on right now.
The Orville's back. I like the Orville. I don't know if any of y'all watched the Orville.
Redenbacher.
Yeah.
I have not heard of that.
No, yeah, it's a great. It's with Seth MacFarlane.
Yeah, it's that Seth MacFarlane Star Trek show.
Star Trek show, yeah.
It's on Hulu now, so I think it was on Fox. Now it's on Hulu, so I guess you can maybe get away with a little bit more since it's a streaming service. But either way, I thought it was a great show. It's not like super cheesy or anything. He's very much a Star Trek sci-fi fan, so it's good. Just, it's great. A lot of summer shows are kicking in to keep us entertained.
When we talk about summer and we talk about blockbusters and new things that come up, the first thing that comes to my mind are the 80s. And that's where I think the blockbuster really took hold in the summer. I just saw Top Gun Maverick again because my wife was a little upset that I went to go watch it without her. And she found out through the podcast and said, I told her, you told me you didn't like Tom Cruise. She's like, I want to watch this movie. We watched Top Gun on Netflix about a month ago to prep for this. So I watched it again last night. I fell asleep towards the end because I knew what was going to happen. But I mean, when you're talking about Top Gun, Stranger Things, I mean, we're getting a lot of 80s retro television movies. And how does that make you guys feel being fans of the 80s?
No, it's kind of great, man. I love this little 80s resurgence. The nostalgia is really big, especially as you get older, and we are getting older, Joe. That little bit of nostalgia kind of makes you feel like a kid again. Then during the summer, instead of having these big summer box office movies, now we have these big summer box office TV shows, and they're all kind of retro. And yes, I know we have Top Gun. That's really cool. I haven't seen it yet. I plan to see it, especially if Tom Cruise is playing beach volleyball again. I mean, you can't miss that shit.
It's football this time.
I want to know how they got him to spike over the net. There's no fucking way in hell you can tell me that 5'4" Tom Cruise could spike over the net. But other than that, man, I'm excited. I love all this resurgence of nostalgia, 80s nostalgia.
Yeah, I think it's cool. I mean, it's always fun to see things in TV shows or in movies that, remind you of us, things that we saw when we were kids. It's like we mentioned with that 90s show that's going to come out. I'm actually looking forward to seeing that. So I'm going to be looking more towards when we start to see 90s nostalgia shows. And I think we have some. I think there's some out there.
Yeah, the Fresh Prince. No, it sucks.
Yeah, that sucks. I was not happy. That was just, I wasn't interested in that at all. Not turning it into a drama. It just shows that, we lived during the more, or we grew up in
better,
I don't know, original time. I guess.
I like that word, Josie. Use original. That's a good fucking word to describe it. Original.
And we talked about this a couple episodes ago. The new Ghostbusters movie, resurgent for '80s. They're making another. They're making another Indiana Jones, but instead of running away from a boulder, he's trying to run to the restroom before he, goes in his pants.
He's not running. He's walking gingerly.
And that's the dad joke for the day.
Today's dad joke is
Today's dad jokes brought to you by
So
Metamucil.
let's talk a little bit about 80s cop movies, guys. Where are all the cop movies nowadays? I haven't seen a good one recently. Can you tell me, maybe within the past year or two, has there been a really good cop movie?
It was like I think the last two, The Good Guys, maybe with Will Ferrell and Mark Wahlberg, and then the last really good one was a remake. It was Bad Boys. What was the last one? The recent one, their third or the end of the trilogy, or whatever.
Right? Yeah, I haven't watched that.
That was
Bad Boys for Life.
Good, Bad Boys for Life. They're like, those movies are always kind of cool for me, man. But I would love to see more buddy cop. You know what I mean? They playing off each other. The bad cop, the good cop.
Yeah.
The jokester. The one that's an asshole or crazy, or you don't see a lot of that. Everybody's so serious nowadays. There's a lot of dramas and shit online, but there's no good buddy cop movies. I wish somebody would create a new one.
I think there's some out there. It's just hard to find them or view them. They're not really making the mainstream, theaters. They're probably coming out on streaming services. On quick search, there's a freaking Bruce Willis movie called Out of Death that I have no idea even came out. And like Bob mentioned, the Bad Boys Forever movie, which was actually a good movie. And the way that they had set that one up, it seemed like they wanted to, continue that maybe for one more. And I was actually interested in seeing that. But yeah, we don't see I have no explanation as to why we don't really see the buddy cop movie anymore, or just the the regular cop movie in general. I mean, unless we get another Rush Hour, and even then, the one that Bob,
Rush Hour.
That's a good movie, I mean, I would actually go see it. I loved those movies. Even the one that Bob mentioned is more of a comedy. The other guys, it's a cop movie, but it's a comedy cop movie. We don't see a lot. I guess I don't know. We're more looking for that one. Those two characters, I guess, something
opposites,
like,
right?
Yeah, like we just had the Batman. I think that's what's more it right now. One bad guy versus one cop, or that's trying to. It just depends.
We talked about this retro resurgence, the 80s and the 90s, and we still have great cop TV shows. We don't have a lot of these shoot 'em up popcorn cop movies anymore. And trust us, people want these movies back. I mean, look at Top Gun Maverick. We just talked about it. John Wick is a throwback. I know it's not from the 80s, but it's a very 80s centric movie with the way, the shoot 'em up.
Yeah, shoot 'em up, huge body counts. You know what I mean? I love that stuff. It's fun. It's entertaining.
It is. And the writing, I'm sorry, Joseph, the writing is so advanced that nobody wants anything as formulaic. I mean, I'm okay with formulaic. We knew watching these 80s cop movies what was going to happen. Bad guy was going to get the upper hand first half hour. The next half hour, our team is trying to figure out what to do. Last half hour, they save the damsel in distress, they save the city, they kill the bad guy. We knew there was a formula to every movie, but we didn't give a shit. We liked that. And I think writers and producers are trying to find these new sort of niche grooves where how do we shock the audience? How do we turn things around? But we like what we like. And I think people are missing that. And I think Hollywood is trying to outsmart themselves with what they're putting out there. What do you think, Joseph?
We live in a different time. We do. So that also is going to come into play on what gets made, what doesn't get made, what doesn't get, filmed or taken a chance on. You're right. There are a lot more. I don't know. Maybe it's the production. It's going to cost more movie to do a film in that manner. And if it doesn't work, you're taking a hit. The TV shows are like you mentioned, just flying. I mean, and I love the TV shows. I watch NCIS, I watch NCISY, I watch Chicago PD. I love that show.
Crime scene or scene of the crime.
The FBI's and, you know, the Blue Bloods, you know, there's a ton of
good
cop drama shows, TV shows. And I think maybe, I don't know, maybe it's a budget thing. You know, oh, it's a TV show; it can just be canceled at any time if you know the ratings slip. No, you're taking a chance on a movie if you want to do something like that. If it doesn't work, so maybe that comes into play too.
So let me ask you guys this: what are your favorite '80s movie cop tropes? And let me name a few, and let's see if you could add on to this because I thought this was a pretty fun list. I have the dirty apartment, ended a relationship with a good woman, the gritty saxophone, the dog. He has to have a dog. And the girlfriend, of course, who left him, still in love with him, and she was way too good for him. The one-liners, the can of six-pack beer in the fridge, along with like bologna or whatever one thing he had.
No, Cobra only had one slice of pizza in the fridge.
The cold pizza for dinner. A car worth more than their apartment. Somebody saying he's a loose cannon or he's dangerous. A pissed-off police chief. A hot police station with blinds, loud telephones, an endless amount of file cabinets, and some smarmy cop making fun of our hero. What are some of the other tropes you guys remember from the 80s?
Those I remember a lot of. I mean, you hit the nail on the head with most of them. I love the over the top, loud and pissed off sergeant or the man in the cop in charge. Right. I love the dirty apartments, the six pack. They all seem to be like alcoholics. At least all the ones you rooted for, right? The ones you really liked. You know, they all had like some kind of drinking problem. They had a drink, or they all smoked cigarettes, and they all looked like stressed out, and or didn't give a shit. They were all stressed out. That's for damn sure, dude. That's for damn sure.
I think probably the biggest one would be the total disregard in all these movies of everything around.
Right.
It's going on around.
The collateral damage.
I mean, the collateral damage. Yeah, I think
like that's great. You can stop the bad guy, but you blew up the entire movie theater. Where are our kids going to go see Jaws now?
I don't think you can do that. It would be way too much. Like you said, the collateral damage around, and in a lot of these movies. Oh my God! I'm sorry.
Yeah. Once again, we're interrupted by my daughter.
I'm sorry, bro.
Joseph got scared.
I got
Joseph
scared.
thought it was like The Ring or something like that.
My daughter was
God.
very much like Children of the Corn at this stage of night. So I think Joseph got a little freaked out when she appeared on camera.
Hi, Mom.
All of a sudden, there was like a little doll head right next. I was like, ah!
I just heard Joseph go, oh, yeah.
All right, you need to go, okay?
Bye, sweetie.
There she goes.
Good night, Mama.
Yeah, I don't know how she busted through my barricade. I have a chair. She should be an 80s movies cop because she busted through the chair.
She MacGyvered her way in.
She unlocked the door.
Dude. I'm not lying, dude.
Joseph's eyes were like, it wasn't even his voice. His eyes went, oh shit.
And you're talking, making a point. I didn't want to interrupt you, and then I was like, "Oh, she's gonna probably freak him out because she's standing right next to me, and she appeared out of nowhere." You know?
Yeah, exactly.
At least she didn't tilt her head like Michael Myers and stare at you, Joseph.
I'm still alive. So, any of the other tropes that we forgot to mention? I think we got all of them, right?
I think we got all of them. Yeah.
And they're all like professional drivers. They're all crazy ass drivers. You didn't mention that. They all
stunt drivers.
Chase scene where they're cutting people off. Yeah.
I would like to say maybe possibly drinking on the job, like because you always kind of say, but I think it still happens. I think you still see it in shows, maybe the TV shows. I'd have to think back, but I think in a lot of these movies we'd see them like at what seemed like the end of the night, and they're at the bar and they're like just thinking about the day and drinking like some whiskeys, and then we gotta go, or we gotta hit or like a phone, and then they take off anyway. Like what the fuck, y'all were just drinking.
And that's funny because when one big cop trope or police officer trope is coffee and donuts. But in the 80s, you didn't see that. It was like black coffee, or they're drinking whiskey, or adding whiskey to the coffee, or having a beer, or smoking cigarettes. Like they're always drinking, but and they weren't eating donuts, man. I never quite saw that in the 80s.
What is the biggest 80s cop movie trope that you could not get away with today? And I want to say mine first. Racist cops as the good guys. I rewatched Nick Nolte in 48 Hours, and I had to take him off my honorable mentions list because even though he's entertaining as hell, Eddie Murphy, first movie role, he rocks it. But Nick Nolte, and I won't repeat any of the stuff he says, but he says so many racist things in this movie. And like, it's like, oh, that's okay. It was the 80s. It's a shoot 'em up action movie.
Which movie was this again?
48 Hours.
48 hours.
Oh, yeah.
And even do another 48 hours too.
Jack
I guess
Cates.
they figured because he was, they're like, if Eddie Murphy was cool with it, I guess, but no, yeah. Nick, true story, Nick Nolte was just playing himself.
I would believe that. Are there any other tropes that you feel aged like terribly?
I would say like the drinking on the job, like Joseph was talking about.
Yeah.
They were, nonstop. It was always drinking and always smoking and like, oh yeah, they're on a break, they're at a bar and they're having drinks and they're on the, I think that's something that, I don't know. I just don't think that, not that you couldn't get away with it, but I guess you wouldn't see it as much nowadays.
When I say 80s cop movie, what is the first moment or line or scene that you immediately think of? I think of, go ahead, Bob.
Go ahead. No, you go ahead.
I want to say my thing is you're the disease and I'm the cure in Cobra. That's the first line I think of. I love that line.
My fucking first thing I think of is going to be so stupid is Police Academy. When what's the name? Excuse me. The real quiet, the real high pitched
Yeah.
voice. And she move, and she's trying to get them to back up, and all the people fall into the pool.
Who's the name of that character?
Shit, I'd have to.
Hooks.
Hooks. There we go. Or I think of like a fucking Tackleberry with a big ass, 45 pistol.
Yes. The ultimate Republican, Tackleberry. What about you, Joseph?
I'd have to say probably the music and the credits. They always kind of seem to have like the same. I don't want to say like retro. I mean, they definitely took advantage of like the music of the time, and maybe the styling of the credits. So and we always kind of and then like a lot of these movies they opened up with like scenic scenes, didn't they? Wouldn't you agree? Like a lot of them, the city, the overview city, and everything going around in the city. I mean,
it's funny that
that's what I always think of.
It's funny that you did that voice. I was watching like old trailers from like the 80s cop movies, and that was like Die Hard, Die Harder. Like they had that guy that did the voice. I was like, holy shit! And
Bruce Willis.
That guy's famous. I can't remember. I wish I remembered his name, but Pablo Francisco used to do a real good spoof of it in comedy shows.
I think the funniest one he did when Van Damme did Double Impact. He was like, Van Damme again, hot damn Van Damme, and because it was too bad. And it was just so over the top. It was awesome. Before we go on to our honorable mentions, guys, I just want to make a serious announcement. Trigger warnings. We want to make sure that our audience is aware. We are going to be talking about characters with who had suicidal ideations, and we want to make sure if that causes anybody to be triggered, we want to let you know beforehand. So if you need to talk to somebody today. You could call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 1-800-273-8255. It's free, confidential. It's available 24 hours, and we just wanted to make sure our audience is A, being taken care of, and B, aware that we will be talking about this issue. And we are a comedy show, but we also want to accommodate some very serious issues and make sure that our audience is aware before we start diving in.
Very well said, buddy.
So let's start off with our honorable mentions. Joseph, who do you have?
Sure.
Nick Nolte.
And that's the show.
Sorry. Go ahead, Joseph.
No. I had to I knew that movie, so I was like, you can't. And we'll talk about this later. A lot of these characters were in multiple movies, so let's just say that. Anyway, I got Roger Murtaugh, obviously. Ivan Danko. I got Cash, Marion Cobraretti, if you want to say it, just call him Cobra, and Alex RoboCop Murphy. I'll just leave it at that. Real simple. I mean, because a lot of these, like I said, there was a lot of movies where some of these actors that we're going to mention, and some of them that you could probably talk about in your honorable mentions, were in multiple movies that were maybe similar. So you just got to pick one character. I mean, so
yeah. I mean, I'm surprised. So Cash, was he Sylvester Stallone or was he Kurt Russell?
He was Kurt Russell.
Okay, good pick.
I picked Kurt Russell.
You didn't like Tango and his glasses.
I think and that's what goes into what I just said. There's too much. So Stallone was in a lot of these. So
Stallone, man.
He's Cobra. He's fucking Tango. I mean,
he would stop where my mom will shoot.
Yeah,
he was everywhere.
I mean, I mean, he was so. You just got to pick a few, I guess. Narrow down to one.
What
or
was
two.
that movie he did with Antonio Banderas, where John Cicada plays him again? What's that movie?
It was like Assassins or something like
Yeah,
that.
Assassins.
Right?
Yeah.
That was a badass movie. I remember him having a cast, and he took off the little piece of tape so he could shoot somebody. I was like, why would you need to take the tape off your cast to shoot somebody? Shouldn't it shoot through the fake cast anyways? But sorry, that's just something.
Another trope. There you go. Who do you have, Bob?
I have Mahoney from Police Academy.
Yes.
Got to go with Mahoney. I think that's hilarious. Nico, Randy's favorite from Above the Law, as Steven Seagal. Love him. Michael Douglas, dude, in Black Rain. Do you know Black Rain, Randy?
I got it on there. Yeah.
Dude, Michael Douglas was a badass fucking. I remember that movie. I watched it a few times as a kid, and I watched it as I got older, and I completely forgot about it. And going over like movies and cops, and I saw it, I was like, holy shit, that was such a great movie. I have Detective Frank Drebin, Police Squad, and Naked Gun. One of my favorite 80s police cops. Nick Nolte. Yes, he's on there. He's racist Nick Nolte. Fucking Nick Nolte. You're my hero, fucking jerk. And of course, I have Cobra. I had to go with Cobra. Who do you got, Ren?
I got RoboCop. I mean, you can't go wrong with
Okay,
RoboCop.
hold on. Can I say something?
Yes, please.
I don't know what it is. RoboCop, the action figure, RoboCop as a story, cool.
Yeah.
I never got into the movies. I never liked the movies. I never went back to rewatch the movies.
I can agree with you on that. They're not exactly the best movies.
I think I compared it to.
Randy looks like he's gonna get mad. And
No. I am mad, but go ahead, Bob.
Personally, I don't think they're the best movies. It's an awesome figure, like Bob said, like a toy or the action figures from back in the days, video games, any kind of merchandise that you can. Because I mean, it's a fucking RoboCop. I mean, it's
a great idea.
The video game was
great.
Yeah,
it's a great concept. Movies aren't that great.
Yeah, I think it's like I compare it to, maybe I'm wrong here, but I compare it to Terminator and Terminator 2, and I feel like everything that it lacked, like Terminator and Terminator 2 didn't lack. Like Terminator 2 and Terminator had all these badass qualities to it and the right storyline and everything. And I think that it was lacking. I don't know what it was about the movie.
I know exactly. First of all, RoboCop, the climax of the first one is tremendous. The toxic drum that the guy.
Oh yeah, the guy.
That death is amazing. And I'm going to tell you why you guys don't like RoboCop. Without looking at Google, who plays RoboCop?
Can't remember.
Can't remember, right?
I know Red Foreman is the bad guy in that movie.
Peter Weller was the actor who played RoboCop. And I want to tell you, if you had Bruce Willis, if you had Mel Gibson, if you had Arnold, if you had Sylvester Stallone, if you had anybody play RoboCop, this thing would have been a lot bigger than it was. I think it was like too much of a it didn't know what it wanted to be. Is it sci-fi? Is it futuristic? Is it crime? And I think there was just too many things going on that they went really low budget with the actor because they were afraid that the end result wasn't going to be what, it was going to be a bust. The second did they make a third one? I couldn't remember, but the sequel sucked. But the first one was good. Yeah, the second one was terrible.
They made a third. Shame on them.
Yes.
Also, you got to look at
I think they did.
Where the Terminator had James Cameron, RoboCop had Paul Verhoeven. I don't even know how to pronounce his last name.
Carefully.
Who the fuck is that? Like, what is he hasn't really. I'm not really looking. I mean, he did Total Recall. Okay, let's give him that.
I think you nailed it. Like the merchandising, the visuals were all there. Just the storyline and the movie itself, it just sucked for me personally.
It depends on whether you like Basic Instinct and Showgirls.
I like Basic Instinct.
I think it's all about the
Starship
casting.
Troopers. I mean,
Starship Troopers is really cool.
I don't know.
That's an underrated movie.
It was more better. Why do we want to say that?
More better shit. I got it in y'all's heads. I got it in y'all's heads.
I mean, it was a better vision from Cameron in a sci-fi, even though Terminator isn't necessarily a cop movie. Yeah, I don't know. You're right.
All I know is if we're doing best '90s cop, Tommy Lee Jones would kick everybody's ass, and bar none.
We're probably gonna have to do that one.
Yeah,
so save that one. I got about 28 more honorable mentions, so let me try to get.
Go ahead.
I have Marion Cobretti as well. I had Mahoney from Police Academy. Got to go with him. John Book in Witness, Harrison Ford. He was amazing in that movie. Elliot Ness in The Untouchables, Kevin Costner. I had Danny McGavin and Bob Hodges in Colors, Sean Penn and Robert Duvall. Great duo. I thought they had amazing chemistry.
Good pick.
Dirty Harry Callahan in the Deadpool. Jack Walsh. Oh, I love this movie. Midnight Run. Robert De Niro as Jack Walsh. An amazing movie. I also had Nick Conklin in Black Rain. This is when Michael Douglas was a badass, and then he went on to do movies where he's walking away naked from the camera and his balls are swinging around like a grandfather clock. So this was Michael Douglas before he, decided to show his ass to everybody. Frank Drebin I had too. I had Steve Burns in Cruising, Al Pacino in S&M Clubs. I mean, what more do you want? We won't go much more into that. I had Nick Toscani in Above the Law. Okay, and both of you guys run. You guys have been athletes. You guys have volunteered and coached leagues and done all this stuff. How would you rate Nick Toscani's run? What would you say?
Shit. I don't know if maybe he's been shot before. I don't know. He's had a lower extremity injury. It's like he didn't wipe properly, or he has chap ass. You know what it's like, something like that.
I haven't heard that in a long time. And then I had Arnold.
It's horrible.
It's very horrible. I mean, his running is just comical. I had Arnold in Raw Deal and Red Heat. But the last one I want to mention, because I know you guys haven't watched this movie, back in the 80s, in the early 80s, HBO ran the same like 4 or 5 movies. They had like Caveman, and they had Eddie and the Cruisers, and they had this one movie called Super Fuzz. And it was from this Italian comic. His name in the movie was Dave Speed. And so he was a super cop that got like hit with ultraviolet rays, and he had superpowers, but every time he saw the color red, his superpowers would leave. Like, so if he's running to catch a crook and he sees a red car, like his superpowers like dissolve. And it was funny. A very cool movie in the beginning. You guys have never heard of it, right?
No. Sounds like some fake ass Superman.
Yeah. That's something I'd watch though. I'd probably drink and watch
Check
that.
out Super Fuzz. Check it out when you have the chance. You can find some clips on
Super Fuzz.
You can find clips on YouTube. So before we go on to our selections, we're going to talk about our friends at Athletic Greens. So Athletic Greens is foundational nutrition for just about everyone, fortified with 75 vitamins and minerals. You've heard us talk about them for the past 3 weeks. That whole food source nutrient in just one tasty scoop. Nutrients, plural. So Bob, Joseph, I know you guys have been taking your Athletic Greens. I felt different over the past month. I've taken Athletic Greens. I take it daily before my workouts. I take it sometimes as a snack because it just does me well. It just does me well. We'll cut that out.
It does me good. It makes me feel better.
I sound like one of like the street thugs that get arrested in the 80s cop movies. But I mean, Athletic Greens has been phenomenal for my workout, for my hunger. I mean, just good quality ingredients.
So I usually don't eat in the morning, but I will take I will have an Athletic Greens shake, and I'm not gonna lie, it does, like Randy said, it keeps you going. It gets you going through the day until your first meal. It's surprisingly the energy, less coffee. I've noticed that I don't necessarily, and sometimes I just skip the coffee. So I think so that's one of the benefits that I've really personally like. I don't want to call it a morning shake, but yeah, it is kind of like a morning shake, and it's really helped to at least get me going in the morning and keep me going throughout the day without having to take any kind of energy drink or an extra cup of coffee.
So Athletic Greens is better than pills, better than capsules, easy to drink, and delicious. So for your health, get yourself some Athletic Greens at athleticgreens.com and use our special checkout code EMERGING. That's EMERGING. Check it out. So we're going on with our selections. Joseph, who do you got?
I chose Martin Riggs. Riggs from Lethal Weapon franchise, a young renegade detective who suffers from suicidal tendencies after the death of his wife. Now, it's true that Lethal Weapon is a buddy cop franchise, and I could have also picked his partner Murtaugh, like his series partner Roger Murtaugh. Like I mentioned, I put him in my honorable mentions at least. Who on his own has compelling arguments. He's a seasoned veteran of the force. He's a family man. He's just doing what he can to make the streets safer for him and his young family. He's got in the beginning of the series, he's got a couple of young kids, and we see them grow throughout the series. So I always thought that was really cool. Riggs might be one of the most overtly insane action cop characters ever created. As I mentioned, he's very suicidal, which for the film series' sake kind of makes him somewhat great at his job. I know that doesn't sound really great, and he's a man with nothing to lose and will stop at nothing to get the job done. In this case, bringing criminals to justice. He regularly puts himself in danger, hoping someone will kill him. Again, the disregard for his life makes him fearless and at times helps with the job. That Christmas tree scene in part 1 It's crazy stuff, man. It really grabbed your attention. As crazy as it is. We do see this character growth from Riggs throughout the first film and throughout the franchise in general. With the help of Murtaugh and those closest to him, Riggs adds a bit of, compassion to his repertoire. Him and Murtaugh become best of friends. An example of this is the toilet bomb scene in Lethal Weapon 2.
That's a good scene, dude.
In a moment where his best friend's life is dangling in the balance, literally, like Murtaugh's balls in the toilet bowl. Rick stays by his side, he through it all. Even when the plan is in motion to save, Roger's life, Riggs, that scene is awesome. He refuses to leave. They're telling him, you got to go. And he's like, no, I'm not going. He gives that death stare to the other cop. Like, I'm not fucking leaving my buddy, my best friend. He puts himself in danger as if the situation were to go wrong. I just thought it was a great moment. This great, like I said, character development for him just continues more and more throughout the franchise. Aside from all this, is the character growth and having, a bit of compassion. His action sequences are great. I really do. I never felt like they made him look like he was this superhuman cop who just, rolled over people. I didn't think anything that he did made him look like, like it was above his capabilities. Right. I personally don't see that. He takes his bumps and his bruises. I mean, his dislocated shoulder over and over. I don't know why I was rhyming. But say what you want about the actor. I know he's not, the most wanted man in Hollywood anymore. Probably still very much hated and completely understandable and probably and justified. But as the actor back then, and for this series and this character, if you can put all that, that mess aside, he was awesome. I thought Riggs was this great, awesome character, like I mentioned, who just did everything. He was a complete human. He was a broken human in the beginning, but becomes complete, with love, with friendship, and doing a good job, doing his job good, at least. At least I think so. That was my pick, guys. What do you think?
I just want to mention, why is that the second balls dangling reference that we've made in this episode? I just thought I'd throw that out there. I haven't made one yet, but I'm just saying, Randall and Joseph,
it's still
early.
You
want to write to us at Formidable, you want a memo? Dangling. Lethal Weapon Riggs, Martin Riggs. This is one of my favorite characters of all time. This is Lethal Weapon and Lethal Weapon 2 were cop movies that my dad watched religiously in the late 80s when they came out. And I watched them with him, and he was one of my favorite characters. Mel Gibson, the Road Warrior. This specific character, Riggs, was awesome. When you picked him, I was like, shit, that was a great pick because Riggs is like the ultimate cop. Now, I will kind of disagree with you a little bit that I did find him to be a little bit more one-dimensional. He was more like the crazy ass, nothing to lose cop that fit a lot of those tropes, always smoking, always drinking crazy. He was the yang to Rogers. I'm too old for this shit, his yang. And I'm not talking about what was dangling in the toilet. I think that they were like the perfect match. Riggs being, younger, crazier, former military, nothing to lose. Let's go get him no matter what. And, Roger being like, shit, I'm close to retirement. I just want to survive. I just want to fucking end this shit. So, you know what I mean? So it was a perfect balance between the two. I did find it may have been a little bit, his character may have been a little one-dimensional, especially in Lethal Weapon 1 and in Lethal Weapon 2. Yes, he does continue to grow in 3 and 4, and I like the character development there. But in the 80s, for this specific character, I thought he was a little bit one-dimensional. But my biggest point was he doesn't kind of beat anybody. There's always the badass, right? There's always like the antagonist. There's always the bad. And who does he? He beats Gary Busey, which he probably based his crazy ass character over. In Lethal Weapon 2, who do he beats Hans from Mighty Ducks. Like, there's not really this great antagonist or badass that they defeat. You know what I mean? It's like these fucking diplomatic immunity, fucking rich, dudes from Russia, or Gary fucking Busey in Lethal Weapon 1. So I think that holds him back a little bit. If he had, stopped, a bombing or something crazy like that in this big dramatic character, this badass bad guy, then we'd be talking differently. But the movies, the bad guys weren't. It's Gary Busey, for God's sakes.
Speaking of Gary Busey, he was reluctant to take this role because he was a big star. Remember, he was nominated for an Oscar for portraying Buddy Holly, and his career was on a downslide. So they asked Gary Busey, we got this movie out, Lethal Weapon. He was very reluctant. His agent pushed him to take it. Was a great move. And if you could be crazier than fucking Gary Busey, I mean, that's saying something, man. So hats off to Martin Riggs.
Gibson did it.
He did. I had, his backstory. He was a U.S. Army at age 19, eventually became a member of Special Forces. I like the fact that they gave him that backstory where, he was a sniper in the CIA's Project Phoenix. The first time he became a killer was when he shot a man to death with a sniper rifle from 1,000 yards in Laos. 1984, his wife dies in a car accident, sending Riggs into a deep depression. And man, I'm going to get to that more because there was a very crucial, important scene I thought he did as well as anybody could have. Total loose cannon, fearless disregard for life. And this was when Mel Gibson still had his Australian accent. I was watching Lethal Weapon 1. I was like, he still has like hints of his Australian accent, before he lost it. Mate? The backstory was that, a police psychiatrist protested Riggs being on the force due to mental health and erratic behavior. Something that hasn't aged very well because if that would have happened now, things would have been different. Never underestimate a person who has nothing to lose. And I read a report online diagnosing Martin Riggs with the following. He's bipolar, PTSD, he had adjustment disorder. He obviously had suicidal ideations due to his depression, losing his wife. That scene where he's about to shoot himself. Wow. I got a quote from Richard Donner, the director, the late great Richard Donner. He says, the camera was shaking because I was crying. The operator was crying, and I started to worry about Mel. He hit himself with a gun on the head, and that was after the take was over. He kept hitting himself. And that was Richard Donner telling a magazine that Mel Gibson really got into it. When he's at that, and Joseph, you mentioned the scene where he's at the Christmas tree, where he's buying drugs from these guys. I mean, when he goes crazy in that scene, he looks legitimately like, this is not acting. This is Mel Gibson. I think the guy look at that scene again and watch the guy at the end with the ponytail and the red and black plaid. When he's looking at Mel Gibson at the end, that's not acting. I think he's fucking scared because I think Mel Gibson really. But the two things I have complaints about, the overkill. I mean, just like in Top Gun, where they hit you over the head with Maverick is too dangerous. The too dangerous corollary. I thought it was overkill. And I think they did that a lot with Riggs. Like, oh, he's a loose cannon. Oh, he's crazy. Oh, he's psycho. He's jumping off of
That's
buildings.
That's a great scene. We're gonna jump.
Yeah,
I love that.
Where he's jumping off buildings with criminals and handcuffing them and headbutting and doing Three Stooges shit. So how would this play today? I mean, it probably wouldn't be played very well. Especially,
it wouldn't.
Yeah, it wouldn't play well today. But I mean, like I said, this is very era specific, and this is it's a good franchise. I think they're making another movie, and of course the mullet, the famous mullet. That inspired Mario Lopez as AC Slater. He's been on record as saying that he styled his hair after Mel Gibson in Lethal Weapon. So I mean, you can't forget that mullet. And Mel Gibson was bound for greater roles. His sadness completely overshadows the comedy, I think, and the action. It overshadows the violence. It was riveting and it was emotional. Nobody at the time could play this like Mel Gibson. I think this is a great pick. I would definitely put this in my top 4 or 5. I think we were beaten over the head a little bit about. Hey, let's let the character develop. And I also like Murtaugh. And I read something that kind of freaked me out. Roger Murtaugh was 41 when he said he was too old for this shit. I'm 45. You guys aren't far away from 41. I mean, it just goes to show you. Jesus. Oh my God.
Thanks for ruining for my night, Rand. Thanks for ruining my night.
So great pick, Joseph.
Riggs.
So we'll go on with my pick. I picked Axel Foley from Beverly Hills Cop. It was released in 1984, the first one, and nominated for an Oscar for Best Screenplay. So even though Eddie Murphy wasn't a contributing writer, he might as well have been since he ad-libbed so much of the dialogue in the movie. This was 1984's second highest grossing film worldwide after Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. So Eddie Murphy passed on Ghostbusters to do this movie, and rightfully so, because this movie was just phenomenal. When we see any modern day cop movie or superhero movie for that matter, I don't care if it's a movie with The Rock or Will Ferrell playing a cop or Ryan Reynolds or Chris Pratt playing a superhero or cop, but the charisma, the charm, the comedy, the improvisation, it all started with Eddie Murphy as Axel Foley. He has to be the blueprint for every movie hero in this era. It all started with him, I think. I won't go into plot details about the Beverly Hills Cop movies. I do think part 2 was better than part 1, but part 3 was a stinker. I don't even mention that one, but part 1 and part 2, phenomenal. And this was the ultimate fish out of water movie. It's an old trope. Take somebody from a different background whose behavior is outlandish, who is in this different, intriguing world, and turn them loose. And nobody did it better than than Murphy as Axel Foley. Not only was it a fish out of water because of the city and because of the background and because of the style, but this was a fish out of water. It was like a meta sort of thing because Eddie Murphy was a comedian who was doing an action movie. He had done 48 Hours before, but that was more of a buddy type movie. This was his own vehicle. And for Eddie Murphy to be this comedian playing an action hero, a movie that, by the way, was originally written for Sylvester Stallone, I mean, he did a phenomenal job. And I think Eddie Murphy completely changed the scope for any cop movies because now you had humor. Now you had somebody who was charismatic. It wasn't about one-liners. It wasn't about just, I'm going to, step by step, save the city, kill the bad guys, and win the girl. Eddie Murphy completely flipped the script on it. And as I mentioned, it was originally written for Sylvester Stallone. He said, Stallone did, that he left the project because he didn't think audiences would accept him as a naive fish out of water cop. And he was right, who was new to the lifestyle of Beverly Hills. He also didn't like the inclusion of comedy and didn't feel it was suited for him. And he was right. He is a good thing. But Stallone used some of the script ideas to make Cobra. And good call with Murphy because he's comical, he's likable, he's vulnerable. Eddie Murphy was about to shoot to the top, and this movie put him over the top. And he has his own theme music. How many 80s cops have their own synth theme music? Eddie Murphy does. And speaking of theme music, Nasty Girl, one of the best strip club songs in the movie. I love that scene. It's okay for your dick to get hard. I mean, great scene.
Third reference.
I'm quoting the character, by the way. Okay. That's not me. Okay. And this movie ushered a new cop era. The quick-witted cop, the cop that's going to make us laugh. And I felt Eddie Murphy's genius was on full display. He wasn't wrangled up by the director. He wasn't given any sort of gates to cross. He was just given full reign, and that was incredible. We had not had diversity in mainstream cop movies before. We had blaxploitation in the 70s, very focused films in the early 80s, and this opened up a lot of doors and nuances for audiences. So Axel's interactions with everyone, you could watch Axel Foley just go about his day, and the interactions he has with valet parkers, Damon Wayans who's selling the bananas, people at the front desk, people who are taking reservations at the restaurant, everybody he has an interaction with, Serge from, Bronson Pinchot. Serge, like detergent.
Sounds like a detergent.
And one thing missing, no love interest, and this is my last point. One of my last points. One thing missing is no love interest for Axel. So we know his style. We don't know his style or his sexual preference. Even at the strip club, he's messing around doing Eddie things. He was very ambiguous, and it really added to the relatability factor because it took away from the love interest trope. We didn't have to worry about that. The movie was entirely about Eddie and his character Axel and the world he was shaping. And a lesser talent would have relied on beating the audience over the head, just like Arnold, Stallone, Bruce Willis, Mel Gibson, you name it. We would have had the inappropriate behavior at the dinner scene or a misunderstanding with a valet parking attendant or a montage of them dressing up for Beverly Hills. But Eddie Murphy just did this smoothly. Eddie flipped the script on everyone, literally flipped it. And that opened up the door for comedy to be in this marriage with action and crime. What do you guys think?
All right. So I think first off, it's Serge. I love the Beverly Hills Cop movies. I even like part 3, with Wonderworld and all that goofy shit. Like I mean, Eddie Murphy is extremely likable. He's extremely funny. These movies were very funny. Now, having said that, he's very one-dimensional. He's the funny cop. Like, he's not the badass. He's not the cool one. He's just the funny guy. And yeah, he didn't have one-liners because he was always dicking around and fucking around. There is nobody. You can't tell me that there was. Yeah, I can name. I'd be more afraid of fighting Frank Drebin than I would be fighting Axel fucking Foley. There's not 1 ounce of muscle or nothing. There's nothing like intimidating about the dude. Like he's just, it is what it was. It's a funny cop movie, and I think that's what it was more about. Cop. I mean, Judge Reinhold is his partner, for God's sakes. You know what I mean? And Taggart, who looks like he's too old for this shit as well.
John Ashton.
I really do love the movie. He's one of those guys that's very one dimensional when it comes to an '80s cop. There's a lot of different '80s cops. We mentioned a ton of them in our honorable mentions, and even Mel Gibson was kind of one dimensional, but he kind of branched off and kind of grew. You know, Axel Foley is Eddie Murphy, man. Eddie Murphy being funny, being goofy, being Eddie Murphy. It was him. He was playing himself. I honestly think that it's like his character in 48 Hours. It's the same character, but as the cop this time instead of the felon. So I mean, he's cool. He's just not the badass. He's not the tough one. He's the goofy, he's the goofy guy. You know what I mean? I'd compare it to, we had a kind of a run on these type of cops. You know, we had Naked Gun. We also had the Police Academy movies. We had Axel Foley. You know, he may have been the forefront and the starter, you know, the Kickstarter for these type of movies. I just wouldn't be able to call him the best 80s cop, just because when we're talking about 80s, we mentioned at the beginning, explosions, high body counts, a ton of shoot 'em ups. You know, that's a lot of the tropes that we see from a lot of action movies. And, you know, with this one, and the thing is, I love these movies and I love Eddie Murphy's character in these movies. I just can't call him the greatest 80s cop because he kind of lacks in that badass, if you want to label. I mean, we couldn't label him that badass cop character. What do you think, Joe?
Well, you actually kind of said a lot of what I was thinking, so I'll just kind of elaborate on a little bit more. Like you mentioned, he's extremely likable. The character of Axel Foley, you knocked it out of the park with the. I don't see, but at the same time, I kind of wanted to say that you don't see too much separation between Eddie Murphy, the comedian. I don't want to say Eddie Murphy in real life, but Eddie Murphy, the comedian, and Axel Foley, the character. I want to say that, you know, there's a difference between. I kind of wanted to use that argument, but now, like, when you look at Mel Gibson, it's kind of like, well, was that a character or was it not a character? So you kind of got to walk the thin line there. Clearly the star power behind Murphy helped with these movies, and that's not a bad thing. I think it was a risk. So I think this was the fact that it worked, I think is really awesome, because it's going to depend on what you want to see, what you're looking for in you know, these cop movies, or these, you know, or 80s cop movies in particular. And like Bob mentioned, the things that we talked about in the beginning, he is the star. It's his vehicle. It's Beverly Hills Cop. You know, it's the story is about him. Along the way, he gets, you know, some, I don't want to call them partners, but people that he works with, and they become friends. And so we kind of have that buddy element, but it's not as much as maybe like people might say about Lethal Weapon. And that kind of I'll admit that might hurt my pick, because they'll say, well, it's not like, you know, one action movie or action cop character on its own. It's two. But yeah, this is it's good for me. It depends on what you wanted in the movie. I think there's a lot. The comedy element is clearly there. It works. It's funny. I love these movies. Action wise, I don't see Eddie Murphy as doing the shit that, you know, maybe Mel Gibson did, or as Riggs. And you can kind of say that because that's not Eddie Murphy's thing. You know, the movies that we've seen him in, can you think to yourself, did he ever have like a real fight scene?
Well, you know,
in The Golden Child,
in Beverly Hills Cop 2, they increased the body count. Remember, they had that shootout scene in the mansion. I think it was the mansion that they also filmed Scarface in, if I'm not mistaken. Mm-hmm. They had that shootout scene. There was a high body count there. There wasn't any hand-to-hand combat. I don't think Eddie Murphy could be that convincing.
So, he didn't need to do it.
There was one in 48 Hours. Nick Nolte and Eddie Murphy, they go at it like in an alleyway, and they're beating the shit out of each other. And it's kind of like funny. And it's serious, but it's funny. Like, it's even funny. Like, they even not make fun of it, but it's like supposed to be a funny scene of them fighting each other, not a serious scene. Like, I don't know.
But that works here, I think, for him, because it's like, you're not gonna believe that Eddie Murphy gets into these fights where he's like doing the shit that like an Arnold would do, or a Sylvester, or what's his name? I can't even fucking Gibson.
Mel Gibson.
But it's like I said, it's just gonna be what you want. It's not saying that the movie isn't, you know, fucking good. We love the movies, you know, we think they're awesome, but it's gonna be what's your preference. Do you want want the tropes that we talked about in the beginning, or do you want the funny cop movie? You know, this is clearly better than anything. And I'm clear, yeah, like you mentioned, good thing Sylvester passed on this shit. Even though he took elements to go make Cobra, he was going to change the name of the character of Axel Foley. I think he was going to call him Axel. What was his name?
Cobretti. Yeah, Cobretti.
He was going to say so. But it worked. It worked for Murphy, and I'm trying to be more the character of Axel Foley. I know we keep talking about Murphy, but because how do you not talk about him? It's, he's so great. But yeah, that's my thing. I mean, it's just going to be on what you want to watch. These are great movies. They're very great movies. I hope that other people have enjoyed them as much as we did.
To wrap this up, because I know we got to get on to the next selection. I think what Eddie Murphy did, if you're looking for like shoot 'em up, gritty, sort of grimy, maybe watch 48 Hours. Don't watch Eddie Murphy and Beverly Hills Cop. But if you want something that's fun, and I think Eddie Murphy's character of Axel Foley inspired a lot of, I think I would even say both your selections as well, with the quick one-liners, some of the improvisations, some of the, not only do we like the character because of what he's doing, now we like the character because we're getting to know him as a human. I think one of the best scenes in Beverly Hills Cop is when he gets thrown out the building and the cops come in and they arrest him. He's like, how are you going to arrest me? They threw me out of the building. And it sort of foreshadowed a lot of what's going on today. So I think Eddie Murphy just was ahead of the game. And I think when you're looking for 80s sort of not vigilante, but cop, shoot 'em up, gritty, grimy stuff, you're not going to get it with the Beverly Hills Cop movies, but you're going to get something nuanced, something fun, and something different that I think elevated and cultivated and actually inspired a lot of the movies we watch now. So I think he was a trendsetter, and that was the reason for my selection. But Bob, we'll go ahead and go on to you.
All right. So here's the game winner, folks. When you talk about 80s cop movie, you have to mention John McClane from Die Hard. He is the quintessential 80s cop. He fits all the tropes. He's a badass. Comes from a divorce or a broken family, right? He's a drunk. He's sarcastic. He does hit the one-liners. He is serious. He is a little bit crazy. He is all of the above. He is everything you're looking for in that 80s cop, man. He's just the perfect guy. He doesn't need shoes. He doesn't take shit from anyone. It's got the funniest one-liners, I think, in any other cop movie, maybe other than like Police Academy. He has the most memorable catchphrase of any 80s movie, any 80s cop movie, any 80s action movie. Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker. All right. He manages to like steal the show. You root for him. You want to be on his side. You think he's a fucking badass. If you're going to war, you want to go with that guy because he's a little bit crazy. He's also a little bit funny. He's also a little bit, he's got some compassion because he's trying to save his wife, right? Which he manages to do. He saves his wife. He saves the Christmas party. He kills a group of terrorists. He shoots Huey Lewis.
I got that.
Why didn't he kill the news also? It's not really Huey Lewis. It's an actor that looks just like him. But fuck, he looks just like Huey Lewis. Yeah, Dennis Hayden. And he ends probably one of the most ultimate 80s badass bad guys in Hans Gruber. Hans Gruber is probably the most memorable 80s bad guys from, I mean, of course you could think of, the other Hans from Mighty Ducks that was in Lethal Weapon 2, but there's not really somebody who stands out. I thought Hans Gruber's character in Die Hard was top notch, dude. Who's one of the best bad guys out there. And, we have this character he's not even in his city, not even in a building he knows, in John McClane, and he's able to trump the terrorists. He's able to kill off Hans Gruber in that awesome dramatic fashion, taping the gun to his back and pulling it away and shooting Hans, and he falls out of the window and he's holding on his wife's arm, and that little dramatic where he rips off the watch and Hans falls to his death. I thought it was fucking awesome, man. He is just the ultimate badass, and there's one thing he did that nobody else really did. I mean, he did it on his own. He did his own. And now what you're going to say, Joseph, he had Carl Winslow talking to him on CB radio, drinking coffee, eating donuts. Carl Winslow didn't do shit. He was just trying to tell, man, Carl Winslow was already at that I'm too old for this shit moment down there. When you talk about, Riggs had Roger, and then, of course, Axel Foley had Taggart, and he had Judge Reinhold's character. He also had Serge giving him all these little cool gadgets and shit like that. And but John McClane did it himself, and he's just the ultimate dude, man. He's the ultimate badass. He's badass. He's relatable. he's just he's a perfect mix of both Axel Foley and Martin Riggs, and he fits all those beautiful 80s cop tropes, and he's just the ultimate badass, man. There's no other 80s cop that can compete with John McClane.
I'll tell you something about John McClane. So he's been described as being a foul-mouthed, wisecracking, no-nonsense New York cop with an itchy trigger finger. Never say die, maverick spirit is what they listen at. So Bruce Willis, here's something funny, was a German-born actor who is an all-American icon fighting a group of German terrorists, none of whom were German in real life. So you figure that out. Only the 80s, right? So it's a fantastic Christmas movie. And I don't know if you guys are old enough to remember Bruce Willis as a TV star in Moonlighting. So Bruce Willis was a comic actor of sorts. Moonlighting was sort of a drama comedy. And Willis was initially declined the role of Die Hard due to contractual obligations to Moonlighting, but his co-star, that's an unfortunate Freudian slip. His co-star Sybil Shepherd became pregnant, so the show shut down for 11 weeks, and Bruce Willis took the film. And we're glad that he did. And this is something to say about our three of our selections. All three of our selections have at least 3 movies each. So, I mean, it goes to show you that we're not the only ones that thought these were the best 80s cops. The public seemed to think so too. But going back to Bruce Willis was mainly known for playing the comedic role on TV's Moonlighting at the time. So when the first trailers of Die Hard appeared in cinemas, audiences started to laugh at him, thinking this must be a comedy. So for a brief time, Willis's face was removed from the posters to prevent expectations of it being a comedy. So when they cut a trailer for the movie, they try to cut out as much Bruce Willis as they could. They kept him off the posters. That's why they used the Nakatomi Plaza for the poster. And once the film came out and received a positive response, Willis's face was added back to the movie poster, to the one we know now. It's a 2 hour and 12-minute movie. So that's a long movie that's a long time for an action movie. A lot of people want that 90 minutes in and out, but Die Hard doesn't feel like a 2.5. I keep saying 2.5. It doesn't feel like a 2 hour and 12-minute movie. I think it's very well paced. Clint Eastwood originally owned the rights to the novel. This movie is based on a novel called Nothing Lasts Forever, on which the film is based. And he planned to star in this film in the early 1980s. Thank God he didn't do that. John McClane, just another American who thinks he was John Wayne, but his humor, he was so endearing, charismatic, and he could turn a line with that gallows sense of humor. We had no car chases. We're stuck in this building for the entirety of the movie. And one of Hans's henchmen, you stole my line, Bob, he looked exactly like Huey Lewis. And that is just so distracting that Dennis Hayden as Huey Lewis. I just kept on thinking about, like, when's he going to sing, like, don't
take money.
I want a new drug or something. The thing is, I loved Huey Lewis. I loved Bruce Willis as John McClane, but I wasn't too crazy about the sequels. I think it was overkill on the Die Hard. Part 2 had its moments, but this one I thought was just a tremendous movie. I think John McClane is what a lot of people think of when they think about that gritty, down on his luck. And we talked about all the tropes. He wears the undershirt. It's dirty. He's got, receding hairline. He's good looking, but he's not overtly handsome. You know what I mean?
Speak for yourself.
I think a lot of women like Bruce Willis, so I will speak for myself. But I mean, he just has all the charisma. This is the career. I think Bruce Willis had the career from the 80s to the 90s that Mickey Rourke should have had. And this should have been a Mickey Rourke sort of career path. But Bruce Willis took it. He took the ball and ran, and he did a phenomenal job. I also think this is one of my top 5 best movie cop personas, John McClane. He's awesome. I don't think he's the best because I think we're stuck in a building. And although it's awesome and it sort of, pays homage to those 70s movies where, the Towering Inferno and all those great movies from the 70s. I wish we could have seen more of the outside stuff. But then when we got the outside stuff in Die Hard 2 and Die Hard 3, I didn't want it. I wanted to go back to the building. So, I mean, great pick. I think he's definitely up there. What do you think, Joseph?
I think you fucking said a lot of the things I wanted to say. But no, I thought that too. That was one of the first things I did. Well, I mean, it's easily noticeable. The fact that this movie takes place in for about, I'd say 98%, 95 to 98%, one area, one building, one thing, and where, our characters, Randall's and mine, are the movies are throughout the, different places throughout the movies. Interesting enough, Bob's pick, John McClane, Die Hard. Although more sequels, I believe, than our movies, Randall, his is the only one that has one movie in the 80s, which is where we're designating this. Both your pick and my pick, Randy, had two movies that took place in the 80s. So we got to see a little more character. I'd say we saw more character development from Riggs than we did Axel Foley, but we just see this one character, at least for the 80s, John McClane. And yeah, like Bob mentioned, he's the fucking prototype, stereotypical, put them all together in one character, and he's this guy. He's, like Bob mentioned, the drinking, the smoking, the, like you said, foul mouth, the itchy trigger finger. He's, at times, the never say die Maverick spirit shit. It's all there. He's got it all. This movie has that all too. The explosions, the gunfights, the hand-to-hand combat. The thing that I always saw, that always seemed weird with John McClane is that he's, and I've said this about Bruce Willis before, sometimes in his movies and how he acts. This real, I don't want to be here, vibe. This reluctant. He's described as a reluctant hero. He's trying to save his family, so it should be fucking die hard. I gotta fucking go crazy. I gotta go die hard to save my family. But he's so soft spoken, and but so that was always weird to me. Yes, as you mentioned, I think as you both mentioned, this is a fucking Christmas movie, and anybody that says different
go to hell.
Can go to hell.
I thought you were gonna say the Whitney Houston "Kiss My Ass."
But yeah, so John McClane, dude, I think. But we love the movie, so because I want to say it's you want to talk about overkill, it's this character, but I don't hate it. I love it. Yeah. I don't fucking hate it. Like the white shirt, he's dirty. He's fucking, he never wipes his face or you know what? I need to change my shirt. I mean, he shouldn't, he's not supposed to really have any time to do these things because he's, it's supposed to all be going down, from beginning to end. And no, I wasn't going to say anything about Carl Winslow. Not, even though it's not Carl Winslow. But I was Carl Winslow. It's Carl Winslow. I was going to make a little joke because you kept saying, did it? And then I was like, no, I did it for the Rock. I did it. You kept saying did it, so that's what popped in my head. This one is totally out there, and I understand why people will probably might say, Bob's got the best pick because this guy's got everything. But you're
talking about me, right? I've got everything. Thank you, thank you, appreciate it.
John McClane, he's got it all in this movie. Like I said, that part's that reluctant stuff and soft spoken stuff can be a little depending on who you are. But hey, like I said, I loved it. I love this movie. It's a great pick. Where you say that our characters are one-sided, I'd say the same thing for yours, Bob, because, but this is maybe because we only got to see, there's more movies, but we're trying to keep it in the 80s. But I know there's more, obviously we all know there's more Die Hard movies, but, and there is probably some character growth in those, but, and we see better talking, I guess, or more,
more dialogue,
more dialogue. So in the later ones, but yeah, this is great. I'm sure this one is, this guy's really up there on that list, and reason being because he has all the things that make up these movies in one.
You should have said all the right moves.
Did you have something to say, Bob?
No. I can agree. I agree with a lot of y'all's points about it. I really do think he just fits that. He's just the mold, man. He fits the mold. You thinking 80s cop? It's John McClane. It's Die Hard, and it's everybody's pick. Shit, how do you come up with arguments against Martin Riggs or against Axel Foley? It's extremely hard to do it. I think what put me at a disadvantage was I only had one movie. Die Hard they only had one movie in the 80s, and while y'all both had two movies in the 80s. But I think his character had that over 2 hours to really show everything about him, and I think he's just the man, dude. It's a good pick. It's a really hard to argue against Martin Riggs, and it's really hard to argue against Axel Rose too. Axel Foley.
It's hard to argue against
Axel Rose. I said Axel Rose, and Joseph's eyes are automatically filled with hate.
And it's funny because you're kind of alluding to the names. All these characters have to have strong names. John McClane, Martin Riggs, Axel Foley. Can we take a lap? I will say that Hans Gruber was the penultimate I think he's better than Victor Maitland in Beverly Hills Cop and Joshua Gary Busey in Lethal Weapon. I know we're talking about 80 series, but Hans Gruber was the best bad guy.
Yeah, he's the ultimate bad guy.
He had never done a movie before. They discovered Alan Rickman as a theater actor. They asked him if he wanted to do this movie. He was reluctant, but he did it. One of the best trivia anecdotes that I read was when he was falling off the building. It was like maybe like a 10-foot drop or something, and it was green screen, and they were holding on to him, and they said, "We're going to drop you on the count of 3. 1, 2," and then they let go. So that look of terror when he's falling down the Nakatomi Plaza, that's real. Because he's never done a movie before. He's like, "How the fuck are you going to let go of me?"
And I don't think yes, Hans Gruber is an all-time bad guy, but I think it's more the performance of Alan Rickman. Alan Rickman is Alan.
Oh,
Rickman.
he's awesome,
He's great. Yeah.
Rest in peace, Alan Rickman. He was so awesome.
And
so
I think him and Bruce Willis had a really good back and forth in that movie as Hans and as John McClane. Like they had a really good back and forth, talking shit to each other and kind of playing off of each other. I thought that was really good.
But I actually have trivia for that, Bob, because when they met for the first time, they didn't have dialogue for that scene. They wanted them to be as natural as possible. So when they're going back and forth when they first meet, that's them. That's them. That's not in the script. That's them.
Oh, that's good.
You know, so that's
very
why it's
awkward
so
and very
Yeah,
that's
so that
cool,
was
man. You know, it's crazy. That's what's crazy. I mean, trivia, real quick. I'll just throw it out there. No. It reminds me of something similar between Bruce Willis again and Gary Oldman in The Fifth Element. They are two of the most. Their characters in The Fifth Element are two, and I know this didn't come out in the 80s, but I'm just throwing it out there because it just reminded me of that. They are the two central figures, or the good guy and the bad guy of the movie, and they do not share a moment on screen other than when Bruce Willis' character is leaving the ship. He gets in an elevator to like go onto another floor to go to ship, and then Gary Oldman's character as Zorg or Zod, Zorg, comes out the other elevator. Like that's the one moment, and they're not even necessarily on screen. It just reminded me of what you said right there. I don't know. It's just crazy. I wanted to throw that out there.
Can we end this Bruce Willis talk on just like admiring his career? We know he's not going to have another movie. We know he's suffering from something right now, and he's in poor health. And it's been said that he won't do another movie. But God, what a great career to follow! I mean,
hell yeah, dude, he was awesome.
Just an amazing movie. Corbin Dallas was his name in the
Corbin Dallas. Thank you.
Yeah, and just Pulp Fiction's my all-time favorite movie. Could have done without his girlfriend in the movie, but you know,
by the nightstand on the kangaroo. Jesus,
I mean, just tremendous. I mean, Bruce Willis has given us. I mean, from Fifth Element, Sixth Sense, Die Hard, Pulp Fiction. I mean, God, what a filmography he's given to us, and just a tremendous actor. And we haven't lost him. I mean, this is not a goodbye to Bruce Willis, but we know that he won't be making any movies, at least we think, in the near future or possibly ever. But man, he's left us with such a treasure trove of characters and great movies.
Yeah. Way to bring down the vibe.
So, any last words on 80s cops, guys?
I wish we would see more of them. Hopefully they make. I mean, they make some new movies with the like the buddy cop, like we mentioned before, and have some guys that fit those tropes, man. Because I mean, it's those are great movies. Each character was a great character, and I would like to see more of that.
We had Ride Along, and it's a comedy one. At the same time, though, Ice Cube's, I can't remember the name. Ice Cube's character is the cop, while the character by what's his name? It was
kind of like 48 Hours, but like
but he's not a cop. He's gonna be his future brother-in-law. And I believe in part 2 he does become a cop. So we still have those. They tend to be more on the comedic side, and that's fine. I mean, like Bob said, I don't know. I mean, we're always rehashing things, and I don't know why we haven't done this yet too much. At least not in a substantial box office type thing. Like I mentioned, we see these movies popping up on streaming services nonstop, things that we've never heard of. Actors probably doing things just because hey, I mean, there are these movies that we never heard of, but I wish we had, like Bob said, we can do it. There's a way we can do it. And I know we mentioned in the beginning that we live in a different time where a lot of these elements of these 80s, cop movies, whether they're buddy cop movies or things like that, probably can't fly nowadays. There's ways to work around it. There's ways to
I think
adjust to it. You know,
I mean, they're starting to make movies now like the '80s, where like having kids cuss and doing like crazy shit. I think they could bring it back, and if people like, I think we've mentioned this at the very beginning too, when we first started doing our podcast, like. Cut out all the political bullshit and your belief bullshit. It's a movie's supposed to be fucking entertaining. If it's supposed to be fucking funny, it should be fucking funny. If you have to have kids cussing and trying to kill the Wolfman and Dracula or something stupid like that, like fucking let them cuss. Who gives a shit? They're trying a 16-year-old trying to find booze because they're in high school, like in super bad.
To be honest, just to add on that. There's movies that are made today that I'm probably not interested in seeing at all, because of, maybe a particular, I just don't go see it. That's all there is to it. But I'm not going to complain about it. I'm not going to, so I mean, it's just, like kind of like Bob said, we're getting back to it though. We are, because the nostalgia thing is obviously very big right now, and hopefully it just kind of continues. So hopefully we take more chances and trust that, as audiences and people in general, that, we can just go back to like, just in like Bob said, in getting away from fucking world for a bit and just being entertained,
I will say, have you guys watched Hobbs and Shaw?
Yeah, I did.
Is that good? Because I know it's a cop movie.
I liked it. Yeah. It's part of the Fast and Furious thing, except without the family
cars.
So I mean, it's kind of like that, because I was gonna ask, well, who would be like the obvious candidates to
actually, now that you mentioned it, well, but at the same time, the character of Shaw, he's not a policeman. He's actually a criminal. Where Hobbs, Dwayne Johnson's character is in law enforcement.
I mean, you have so many great actors who could do, like, I mean, look, Chris Pratt, The Rock. There's so many actors that you could take it back to the shoot 'em up movies. And just to wrap this up, guys, I mean, just coming off watching Top Gun Maverick 2 weeks in a row, packed audiences, people cheering, people having a good time. Because it's a popcorn movie, and people want that shit. Because we've had such a shitty time the past 2 years with COVID and horrible economy and trying to figure things out, trying to fend for our families and make sure everything's okay, that we want that 2-hour escape or that 90-minute escape. And I think that's what Top Gun Maverick did, with that nostalgia factor. And a lot of us who grew up in the 80s and 90s, we're now adults. We have children, or we have full-time jobs, careers, or whatever. We want to go back and escape and make a new Monster Squad, make a new Beverly Hills Cop or whatever. Just do it right. And you have the people there and you have the talent. And I think we're going to see more of that after this litmus test that was Top Gun Maverick.
I'm in.
I'm not a Miles Teller fan, so it's kind of like I'm on the fence.
He's great. He's great in this movie. Check it out.
They're we need another 5'6" kid with abs.
They carry Tom Cruise around like they do at the end of the original Top Gun, so that was kind of fun to watch. But that's our show, everyone. Listeners, we'd love to hear from you. Hit us up and let us know. Let us know who your favorite 80s movie cop is. Most importantly, let us know what you think about the show. You may reach us at formidableopponents@gmail.com. Follow us on social media, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok by searching for Formidable Opponents. Want to thank Creative Little Pill for her artwork. And join us next episode as we will be debating best 2000s rock. That's 2000s rock from 2000 to 2010, otherwise known as divorced dad rock. So we'll be doing
high school rock. That's our high school rock.
So for Bob and Joseph, this is Randall. We'll see y'all next week.
Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker.
I'm too old for this shit.